You'd never guess this adorable little girl is actually the crown prince's fiancée. During the New Year's banquet at the Imperial Palace, the Grand Marshal's 3.5-year-old daughter met the 4-year-old crown prince for the very first time. With just one look, she was completely captivated by his handsome face and noble air. When the prince caught her spying on him, little Yaoya begged her mother to let her go play and build a snowman with the boy over there. Once she got her mom's permission, Yaoya happily skipped over to the crown prince. She politely introduced herself. "Hello, big brother prince. My name is Shenyao, and I'm 3.5. The prince, seeing the cute little girl, greeted her back politely, but he never expected her to suddenly hug him and plant a kiss on his cheek. After a moment of shock, the flustered prince forcefully pushed her away, causing her to lose her balance and fall to the ground. This commotion caught the adults' attention, and the emperor and empress immediately rushed over to scold the prince. When Yao's mother picked her up, she wasn't angry at all. She comforted her parents, saying it didn't hurt one bit. Then she explained to the empress that she kissed the prince first, which is why he got upset and pushed her, so they shouldn't blame him. Hearing her defend him, the prince felt a little embarrassed. That's when the empress told him, "Yaoya is your future crown princess. You need to treat her well." Fast forward 4 years. The emperor issued a decree for 7-year-old Yaoya to move into the palace to study alongside the crown prince, with her daily life to be personally overseen by the empress. But what kid her age wants to leave their mom? When Yaoya heard the news, she clung to her mother's leg, bawling her eyes out and refusing to let go. It was a scene that would make anyone's heart break. Anyone who didn't know better would have thought they were selling a child. Seeing her daughter's tears-streaked face, Yaoya's mother felt her heart ache. But no matter how much she coaxed and pleaded, Yaoya wouldn't budge. The empress and the crown prince, who had come to pick her up, didn't know what to do. The empress, remembering how much Yaoya liked the prince when she was little, sent him over to try and comfort her. The prince couldn't help but remember their first meeting, and a blush crept onto his handsome face. He walked over to Yaoya, gently wiped away her tears, and said softly, "Yaoya, don't you like kissing me? If you come back with me, I'll let you kiss me every day." A second ago, she was crying her eyes out, refusing to go to the palace, but the promise of kisses every day was all it took. She instantly forgot all about her mom. The next morning, while the empress was still helping her get dressed, Yaoya was already bouncing with excitement, eager to get to the academy. But the person who came to pick her up wasn't the crown prince. It was Wen Kongyi, the grand tutor's eldest grandson. He was both the prince's study partner and his best friend. The empress knew exactly what was going on and explained sheepishly, "Ginger must have had something important to take care of. That's why he couldn't come get you." But Yaoya was very understanding and said it was okay, figuring she'd see her big brother prince at the academy anyway. She slung on her little backpack, said goodbye to the empress, and left. The empress watched her go, thinking how much she adored her sweet and well-behaved future daughter-in-law. On the way to the academy, Yaoya couldn't help but pull at W. Kongyu's sleeve. "Brother Wen, what's the big brother prince so busy with? Why didn't he come get me?" Wen Kongyi sighed. He couldn't very well say the prince wasn't busy at all. He just didn't feel like coming. So he nervously made something up. "His Highness is busy, catching up on his homework." Just as Yaoya was about to believe him, a voice cut in. "He's lying." The two of them jumped. They looked over and saw Zheng Xiao, the son of the great general. He leaped down and stood in front of W. Kongyi. "Little sister Yao, let me take you to the academy." Bu Kongyi was furious at being ignored. "Zheng Zhao, the prince, asked me to bring Shen Yao. Don't interfere." Zheng Zhao just scoffed. "I go to school here too, and I'm good friends with Yao's second brother. What's wrong with me taking her?" As they were about to argue, Yaoya just grabbed one by the arm, linked her other arm with the second, and marched them both toward the academy. By this time, the crown prince was already in the classroom reading, wondering why Wang Yi was taking so long. Just then, he saw the trio appear outside his window. Yao immediately noticed the prince peeking at her, but she didn't want to disturb his homework, so she turned to say goodbye to Zheng Xiao first. "Okay, big brother Zhang, I'll come find you on my day off." The prince knew Yaoya had seen him, but chose to ignore him. Annoyed, he called out coolly, "Shenyao, come here. I need to talk to you." Seeing that the prince had time to talk, Yao Yao asked bluntly. What is it? Did you finish your homework already? The question threw the prince for a loop. What homework? The moment Yao Yao saw his reaction, she knew Zhang Zhao was telling the truth. She had been tricked. Furious, she turned and stomped away. The prince realized when Kungi's white lie had been exposed, but this little girl had quite a temper. Was all that sweet, obedient behavior just an act? The thought sparked a wave of resentment. I'm a modern kid at heart, who hates the idea of an arranged marriage, he thought. I'm not going to be with this girl no matter what. I have to keep my distance. On her first day, after introducing herself, it was time for Yao Yao to pick a seat. The teacher announced that the only open spots were next to the crown prince and the fifth prince. The crown prince, who had just decided to avoid Yao Yao, felt a jolt of panic, especially when he saw her staring right at him. He had a very bad feeling about this. Of course, Yao Yao wanted to sit with her big brother, Prince, so she didn't hesitate to say she wanted to be his desk mate. In response, the prince piled a stack of books on the desk and told the teacher there wasn't enough room. The other students started whispering, wondering if the prince disliked Yao Yao. Not knowing what to do, Yao Yao glanced over at the fifth prince. There was an empty seat, but he looked like he hated her too. Yet, when the teacher brought her over to ask, the fifth prince put on a smile and said he'd be happy to help the prince and the teacher out. But Yao Yao still wanted to sit with the crown prince. She muttered under her breath, I don't want to sit with him. The fifth prince's friendly gesture was met with a cold shoulder. He nearly ground his teeth in anger. She's still the same as she was back then, he thought, always embarrassing people in public. It turned out that 4 years ago, at that same New Year's banquet, the fifth prince had wanted to build a snowman with the other kids, but he had a cold and was sneezing and sniffling constantly. To avoid getting anyone else sick, he had to stand by himself and watch. As he stood there bored, a cute little girl ran past him. He watched her plant a kiss on the crown prince's face, get pushed over, and crush a snowman behind her. After the crown prince was led away by the emperor for a scolding, the little girl was left alone, trying to fix the squashed snowman. The fifth prince decided to go play with her. He walked up and politely introduced himself. Hello, my name is Xiaomi. Yama politely introduced herself back and asked if he was a friend of the prince. Just as the fifth prince was about to explain that the prince was his older brother, he let out a huge sneeze and a glob of snot flew out. Before he could wipe it away, Yao Yao shrieked, There's a giant booger! Her shout drew a crowd of onlookers. The fifth prince was so mortified he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. It became his most traumatic childhood memory. Back in the present, as Yao Yao walked to her seat, she passed by the crown prince, hoping he would change his mind. But he pretended to be engrossed in his book and didn't even look at her. She was so mad she wanted to bite him. As soon as she sat down, Yao Yao apologized to the fifth prince for what she'd said. It's not that I don't want to sit with you. The fifth prince immediately feigned understanding. I know you want to sit with the crown prince. Noticing the prince was peeking over, the fifth prince leaned in close to Yao Yao's ear and whispered maliciously, Too bad he doesn't want to sit with you at all. As Yao Yao read aloud from her textbook along with the class, the fifth prince, sitting next to her, deliberately bumped her and accused her of being too loud. Faced with his baseless accusation, Yao Yao decided to just let it go. It was her first day, after all. Better to avoid trouble. But when she switched to reading silently, the fifth prince bothered her again. Getting annoyed, Yao Yao turned to tell him she wasn't making any noise. But he suddenly slapped a piece of paper on her forehead. Look what I drew of you. Yama looked at the drawing of a pig head and finally lost her patience. She'd had enough of his constant teasing. She shot up from her seat and called out to the teacher, Sir, the fifth prince is slacking off in class. The next thing he knew, the fifth prince was being led outside by the teacher for a lecture. But the rebellious prince let the words go in one ear and out the other, already plotting his revenge on Yao Yao. Inside, Yo-Yo sighed in relief, finally getting some peace and quiet. She had no idea that her brave stand against the fifth prince had just earned her a superfan, the sixth princess. Finally, the bell rang, signaling the end of class. The fifth prince, who had been standing outside, stormed back into the room with a dark expression. As soon as he got to his seat, he viciously bumped into Yao Yao, who was drawing. Then he swept her drawing paper onto the floor, used his hands to mark off more than half the desk, and declared that all of it was his from now on. Having reached her breaking point, Yao Yao shoved his arm away and let out an angry shriek. Then, with a flourish of her brush, she drew a thick line down the middle of the desk, a 38 line, and told him that whoever crossed it was a pig head. The fifth prince stared in disbelief. She was the first person in the palace who had ever dared to treat him like this, and she had even pushed him. Enraged, he shot to his feet, ready to strike her. Yao Yao was frozen in place, terrified by his violent outburst. But just in the nick of time, a hand shot out and grabbed the fifth prince's wrist. It was the crown prince, standing in front of Yao Yao, looking annoyed. "Haven't you caused enough trouble?" he demanded. As the fifth prince was about to argue, Yao Yao, snapping out of her daze, started crying with big, fat tears welling up in her eyes. "Big brother prince! He was bullying me!" she wailed. A second ago, the crown prince had been determined to keep his distance from Yao Yao. The next, he was standing up for her, goading the fifth prince and then taking her hand. As they walked out of the academy, Yao Yao was still worried about getting in trouble for skipping class on the first day. But the crown prince didn't seem to care at all, saying Kongi would make excuses for them. Right now, he just wanted to take her somewhere to cheer her up. They wandered over to the kickball field and saw Zheng Zhao dominating the game. Yao watched the exciting match with a look of awe. "Big brother Zhang is amazing," she exclaimed. Her praise caught Zheng Xiao's attention. Seeing the crown prince was there too, he invited him to join the game. The prince wasn't really interested, but he couldn't resist Yao Yao's adorable, pleading face, so he reluctantly changed into a uniform. Unable to withstand Yao Yao's adoring and fiery gaze, the prince asked shyly, "Do you want me to teach you? You can be on my team." Before Yao Yao could even nod, Zheng Xiao handed her a jersey for his team. "In our class, it's my job to teach little sister Shen Yao." He told the prince, "No need to trouble yourself." And just like that, the prince watched as Yao Yao was whisked away. With big brother Zhang's hands-on coaching, Yao Yao quickly got the hang of kickball. Before long, she saw an opportunity to score. She kicked the ball with all her might, and it flew straight into the crown prince's face with a loud thwack. Yama rushed over to check on him and saw a huge lump forming on his head. She felt terrible. Just then, Zheng Xiao came over and said reassuringly, "It's fine. This happens all the time in kickball. Have someone take the prince back to the East Palace. We'll keep playing." Lying on the ground, the crown prince felt like someone was trying to steal his girl right out from under him. He shot up like a rocket, grabbed Yao Yao's hand, and blurted out an excuse about needing to do homework with her, saying they didn't have time to play anymore. And with that, the jealous prince led Yao Yao away from the kickball field. The next day, Yao Yao arrived at the academy and was stunned by what she saw. Every single desk in the classroom had a 38 line drawn on it, as she wondered why the sixth princess scurried over and whispered that everyone was just copying her for fun, and the trend had even spread to other classes. A little later, the headmaster came in furious. "Who was the first student to draw these lines?" he demanded. Hearing this, the fifth prince immediately stood up and pointed at Yao Yao. When the headmaster questioned her, Yao Yao explained with a pout that the fifth prince had tried to take over her desk space, and she was only defending herself. Her number one fan, the sixth princess, quickly chimed in to confirm that her fifth brother had started it. But in the end, both of them were sent to stand outside as punishment. Even then, they continued to bicker and trade friendly insults. Hearing the commotion, the teacher had informed Yao Yao and the fifth prince that they had the afternoon off. They were to spend the time wiping all the desks in the academy clean to restore a proper learning atmosphere. The fifth prince was about to bolt. A chore like this was obviously for the servants, but the teacher grabbed him, handed them a ring of keys, and told them they were not allowed to have any help. He hoped this would teach them to get along as deskmates. Yama immediately promised to make up for her mistake. The fifth prince, however, was seething. This was all Shen Yao's fault. She had really dragged him into a mess. After the teacher left, the fifth prince grumbled that Yao Yao was just a goody two-shoes who knew how to sweet-talk the teacher. Yama thought he was being ridiculous again, saying she was just showing respect. With a pout, she tossed half the keys to him. "We'll each clean 10 rooms. The fifth prince was shocked that she dared to order him around. Furious, he gave her a hard shove. Yamal wasn't one to back down, and she turned to retaliate. Luckily, the crown prince arrived just in time and pulled her into his arms. "Stop it, don't mess around." And fifth brother, don't waste the teacher's efforts. As a prince, you should be more careful with your words and actions. With the crown prince mediating, the fifth prince, though still fuming, couldn't defy him. He huffed and stomped away. The moment he was gone, Yao Yao's true colors showed. She excitedly tried to hug and kiss the crown prince, but just then, a little head popped out from behind a pillar, startling them both. It was the sixth princess, who had come to help Yao Yao clean. A moment later, Zheng Xiao, having heard the news, arrived with a group of classmates. "Little sister Shen Yao, I'm here to help you clean," he announced, tossing the keys to his friends and telling them to split the remaining 9 classrooms. After everything was settled, the crown prince said sourly, "Brother Zhang, your timing is impeccable." Zhang Zhao paid no mind to his sarcastic tone. Yao quickly ran over to thank him, then asked, "Can you guys help the fifth prince too?" But Zhang Xiao said someone would surely help the fifth prince, and it didn't need to be them. At that moment, the fifth prince was outside listening to the cheerful chatter inside. He was all alone, with no one to help him, and his resentment grew even deeper. About 30 minutes later, Yao Yao and her friends had finished all 10 classrooms. She and the sixth princess went to wash the buckets at the well, where they ran into the fifth prince all by himself, drawing water. Startled to see them, the fifth prince glared and said sarcastically, "Sixth sister? Is the crown prince the only brother you have?" Hearing this, Yao Yao immediately stepped in front of the scared sixth princess. "She came to help me." "It has nothing to do with the crown prince," she retorted, and stopped being so mean to everyone. The fifth prince was furious that Yao Yao was standing up to him again. His anger boiled over. Without thinking, he splashed the bucket of water he had just drawn all over her. After drenching Yao Yao, he threw the bucket at her. Humiliated and enraged, Yao Yao immediately threw a bucket of water back at him. The two launched into an all-out water fight, while the sixth princess stood by, frozen in shock. Yao seized an opportunity and tackled the fifth prince to the ground. He struggled wildly at first, but she immediately gave him 2 hard spans on the bottom. Pinned down, the fifth prince was utterly humiliated. The worst part was, he couldn't break free. After a series of loud smacks and failed attempts to escape, he finally swallowed his pride and yelled to the sixth princess, "Huan, what are you standing there for? Go get the guards!" The frantic sixth princess ran off and bumped right into the crown prince and Zheng Xiao, who were looking for them. It's terrible. Fifth brother and Yao Yao are fighting. The crown prince could only sigh at the 2 troublemakers, worried about what would happen if Consort Wei found out. Zhang Jia, on the other hand, looked thrilled. "Really? Quick, take me to see!" Meanwhile, the fifth prince had finally broken free from Yao Yao's grip, and the 2 were locked in a stalemate. He threatened to have his mother skin her alive. But Yao Yao wasn't scared at all. "Go ahead and tattle, if you're not embarrassed. Let's have His Majesty judge who's right." Her words hit a nerve. He remembered his mother telling him not to embarrass her at the academy and to win their father's favor. Now he had caused trouble and gotten spanked by a girl. He had failed her expectations. Just then, the crown prince and Zheng Zhao arrived and pulled them apart. Though they were still shouting threats at each other, Zheng Zhao quickly covered the fifth prince's mouth and said he'd take him to change his clothes, then whisked him away. The crown prince checked on Yao Yao, who bravely said she had only twisted her ankle, but the prince's sharp eyes noticed the scrape on the back of her hand. "Your hand is hurt. The Empress and Lady Shen will be so worried if they see it." Yama looked at the scrape and insisted it was just a minor injury. And besides, she hadn't lost the fight. She then turned toward the departing fifth prince and shouted loudly,
"If the fifth prince ever bullies me again, I'll spank him again."
Hearing this, the fifth prince was both humiliated and furious. "Damn it! I can't let Mother find out she spanked me." After their water fight, the fifth prince and Yao Yao both went back to the palace. Yama, who had twisted her ankle, was getting a piggyback ride from the crown prince, happily singing, "La! Xiam is a big dummy." They had just arrived at the East Palace when they ran into the Emperor and Empress strolling in the courtyard. The Emperor saw Yao Yao soaked to the bone and immediately took her, gently wiping the water from her face. The Empress asked with concern, Why are you all wet? What happened? The crown prince winced. He had forgotten to tell Yao Yao not to tattle on his fifth brother. Luckily, Yao Yao was still celebrating her victory and wasn't planning on holding a grudge. She just said she was playing with water and accidentally knocked over a bucket. And the crown prince had gotten wet from carrying her. Don't worry about the prince, the emperor said. He's tough. The crown prince felt like he was the adopted one, but at least Yao Yao hadn't tattled. So his fifth brother was safe. Their father could be pretty scary when he was angry. As the family of four was having a nice moment, a eunuch rushed in. Your Majesty, the fifth prince has a high fever. Consort, we request your presence. When the empress reached for Yao Yao, the emperor, not wanting his wife to get tired, told the crown prince to keep carrying her since Yao Yao was surprisingly heavy. The sudden display of affection was a bit much for Yao Yao and the prince. Big brother, prince, am I really that heavy? The prince just sighed. You get used to my parents. They're always like this. Before leaving, the emperor gently kissed the empress on the forehead. I'll be right back, he said softly. I'll come find you as soon as I can. At that moment, in the inner court of Jingshu Palace, the fifth prince lay in bed. After some hesitation, he asked, Mother, will father see through this? Consort Wei, busy touching up her makeup, replied dismissively. So what if he does? You did catch a chill. That teacher of yours is completely unreliable. I think I'll have your father dismiss him. The fifth prince was about to defend his teacher when the door flew open and the emperor strode in. Xiao Wu has been training diligently for years. How did he catch a fever in August? He demanded. Consort Wei explained with a pout that their son had slipped in the water room and gotten wet, and the fever had only just started to break after taking medicine. But the emperor was not easily fooled. He felt the boy's forehead and knew instantly what was going on. Shen Yao, a girl, was completely soaked and didn't even sneeze, he said coldly. Consort Wei didn't catch the hint. Why are you bringing up outsiders now? She whined. This is all that academy teacher's fault. How could he make a prince fetch water and wipe tables himself? He must be punished. Meanwhile, Yao Yao was doing homework with the crown prince, but she couldn't concentrate. Finally, she asked worriedly, Big brother, Prince Xiaoan isn't going to die from this fever, is he? The prince was taken aback by her dramatic imagination. Well, fifth brother has always been frail since he was little. Yama hadn't realized the fifth prince was so delicate. If she had known, she wouldn't have thrown water on him. But it was too late for regrets. She took the prince's hand and said earnestly, Big brother prince, let's go secretly check on him. But they were stopped at the gate of Jingshu Palace. Even after the crown prince stated his purpose, the guards firmly refused entry to anyone. Prince was annoyed, but couldn't force his way into a consort's residence. So he waited until nightfall and brought Yao Yao to the wall of his fifth brother's courtyard. He looked up at the high wall. It's so tall. How are we going to get in? Can you do kung fu, big brother prince? Can you just leap over while holding me? With an expectant look on her face, Yao Yao told him she was ready. Instead, the prince parted some bushes to reveal a doggy door. Fifth brother dug this so he could sneak out to play. Let's go. Yama stared at the hole, completely stunned. This was a far cry from what she had imagined. She couldn't believe Xiaomi would go to such lengths just to play outside for a bit. As soon as they were inside, they heard the sound of a whip cracking from inside the palace. Inside, the fifth prince was kneeling on the floor as Consort Wei lashed out with a whip. I asked you to fake an illness, and you couldn't even do that, right? You're such a coward. Nothing like your father when he was young. Her son flinched and whispered that he didn't want to lie to his father, who had already seen through it anyway. But Consort Wei didn't care and continued to whip him. After a long while, she finally threw the whip down. You stay here and think about what you did. You're not going to the academy tomorrow. Outside, the prince and Yao Yao had seen everything. They never knew Consort Wei could be so terrifying. The prince quickly told Yao Yao not to tell anyone what they saw, or the consort would surely beat his fifth brother again. When Yao Yao nodded, the prince patted her head and gestured for her to go inside. The fifth prince was lying on his bed, sobbing, his back covered in welts. The pain was unbearable. When he saw the prince and Yao Yao suddenly walk in, he shot up. Fourth brother, why did you bring her here? To laugh at me? Fearing a bigger misunderstanding, the prince patiently explained, "We thought you were seriously ill. Shenyao thought you were dying, but the fifth prince wasn't having it." What? Afraid that if I died, you couldn't hide the fact that you fought with me today. Hearing his sarcastic tone, Yo-Ya angrily shoved a bundle she was holding at him. That's right, so you better not mess with me again. I don't want to fight with you anymore. He opened the bundle and found it filled with ginseng, bird's nest soup, and other restorative herbs. They soon learned that because the emperor had been angry with Consort Wei, she had taken it out on the fifth prince and forbidden him from going to the academy the next day. The crown prince immediately said that he and Yo-Ya would come tutor him after school. The fifth prince wanted to refuse, but he couldn't argue with the prince and had to agree. On the way back, Yo-Ya couldn't help but ask, "Big brother prince, I heard that both the consort and the empress were childhood friends with the emperor. Since that makes us childhood sweethearts, too." She looked at him very seriously. "But you can only have one childhood sweetheart." "Okay, me." Seeing how earnest she was, the prince smiled and nodded. "All right, I promise." As the three of them were secretly studying, the door was suddenly thrown open by the consort. The noise startled all of them. Seeing people in her son's room, she exploded with anger. "I knew it. If no one was encouraging you, my son would have come to apologize to me long ago." The fifth prince frantically said it had nothing to do with the other two. The crown prince also stood up to explain. "Aunt, we were just helping him with his lessons. You're overthinking it." You bravely piped up. "The fifth prince is going to get sick from being cooped up. When are you going to let him go back to the academy?" The consort, already furious, heard Yo-Ya's question, and her voice turned venomous. "So, you're Shenyao? It's not your place to tell me how to raise my child. It's late. I'll personally escort you back." When they arrived at the Empress's Phoenix Palace, the consort shoved Yo-Ya, making her stumble. "I know you're favored by His Majesty and have no time for other matters, sister, but you shouldn't neglect your child's upbringing." The Empress was alarmed to see Yo-Ya almost fall. Luckily, the prince, who was beside her, caught her just in time. The Empress walked over, stroking Yo-Ya's head. Facing the arrogant consort, she spoke calmly. "Thank you for the reminder. But seeing the genuine friendship between the three of them makes me very proud. It's late now. Someone escort the consort back to her palace." The consort just snorted in disdain. "Friendship, that's the cheapest thing in the world. You'd better watch over your precious son and not corrupt my child with such weakness." With that, she turned and left, leaving the Empress lost in thought. The consort and the Empress were once inseparable best friends, both of them childhood sweethearts of the Emperor. Now, their relationship was like fire and water. Was friendship really so cheap? It was the first time Yo-Ya had seen the Empress so sad. Though she didn't know why, she felt a pang of sympathy for her. 3 months passed, and the fifth prince never returned to the academy. Yama was left without a deskmate, and the loneliness was starting to get to her. Today, Yama was out on a trip with the crown prince and his family, who were dressed as commoners. It had been a while since she'd been out shopping, and everything seemed new and exciting. "Big brother prince, look, a rabbit lantern." The prince was clearly uninterested. The Empress just smiled. "Ginger, pay the man." "Wow, candied hawthorns." "Ginger, pay the man." "And beef pastries." "Ginger, pay the man." But the next moment, Yo-Ya was drawn to a glittering golden Pixiu statue. Her eyes lit up, and she was about to reach out and touch it when the prince quickly stopped her. "Wait a minute. We don't need that one, do we?" Seeing how nervous he was, Yo-Ya couldn't help but tease him. "Don't worry, big brother prince. This one's not for sale." The prince was a little embarrassed. The Emperor and Empress couldn't help but chuckle. To change the subject, the prince took her hand and said, "Come on, I'll take you to get a clay figurine made." Yo-Ya happily agreed. A little while later, Yo-Ya was holding a small clay figurine of the prince as she arrived at her family's mansion. The Shen family, having been notified, was already waiting at the gate. When the Emperor's party arrived, they quickly welcomed them inside. At the banquet that evening, the men were drinking and chatting. Lady Shen, worried the prince might be bored, asked her second son, Shen Fang, to take him and Yao Ya to the side hall to play. Knowing Shenfeng was a bit mischievous, she specifically warned him not to cause any trouble. Shenfeng agreed with a smile, but as soon as they got to the side hall, he pulled out a pot of wine. One of you is the crown prince. The other is the daughter of a military official. You'll have to drink sooner or later. This is the finest fruit wine from the western regions. Would you like to try some? Yama didn't think much of it. Hearing it was fruit-flavored, she took a cup and had a sip. It was sweet and sour, quite tasty. The prince didn't want to drink, but seeing that Yao Yao had, he felt a bit awkward refusing, so he took a small sip too. After that, it was one cup after another. 15 minutes later, the prince, his face flushed, declared woozily, "Come, come, let your big brother prince teach you a set of boxing moves." One moment, Yo-Ya was seriously mimicking his moves. The next, they both collapsed to the floor in a drunken stupor. The next day, the crown prince was reading intently while Yao Yao was playing with her clay figurine. An old nanny, seeing it was getting late, brought over basins of water for them to soak their feet. Yama and her big brother Prince soaked their feet in unison, rinsed their mouths in unison, and wiped their faces in unison. They even handed each other the towels in perfect sync. The old nanny couldn't help but remark, "Your Highness and the young lady are becoming more and more in tune." The prince casually replied, "Since my mother brought her here, it's only natural that we're as close as brother and sister." The word brother and sister hit Yao Ya like a ton of bricks. She immediately pouted, saying she didn't want to be his sister. She was going to be the crown princess. The prince, unfazed, asked her, "Well, what do you call me every day?" "Big brother. Prince. Big brother," she blurted out. "And what do I call you?" "Little sister Shen Yao." "So, is there a problem with being like brother and sister?" At this point, Yao Ya realized she'd been tricked, but she couldn't argue. After a moment, she said sadly, "The Empress said, I'll be the crown princess, not your sister." She figured the problem must be the titles. From now on, she wouldn't call him Big Brother. She'd just call him by his name, Xiao Jing. The prince sighed at her stubbornness and reminded her that if she called him that, people would say she had no manners. Yao Yao hadn't thought of that. All she knew was that she didn't want to be his sister. The prince, tired of her persistence, gave her a light flick on the forehead. "Have you ever heard me call anyone else sister? Besides Xiaoan, of course. That proves you're the only one, that you're different from everyone else." Though her forehead stung, Yao Yao's heart soared. "So, my big brother prince really likes me. I like my big brother prince the most too." Seeing her back at full energy, the prince quickly looked away. He couldn't understand how she could say "like" so freely without getting embarrassed. Just then, the old nanny called for them to go to bed. Yama pouted, saying she still wanted to play house with the prince as the groom and her as the bride. Hearing this, the prince blushed and said she just didn't have enough homework. He then pulled out a stack of books. "If you want to play, I'll be the teacher and you'll be the student." Yama groaned, realizing her mistake. Little did she know, the best was yet to come. Facing the extremely strict teacher prince, Yao Yao, who was not a great student, felt her head spin. This was not the game she wanted to play. The prince, seeing her struggling to write her characters correctly, sighed. There was nothing for it but to teach her himself. He came up behind her, took her hand, and guided her, brush stroke by stroke. "Write it like this. Understand?" With his guidance, Yao Yao learned immediately, but their close proximity made her blush. The old nanny watched the two of them, reminded of how the emperor and empress had grown up together. An hour later, the prince was about to teach her some of the anlaks, but after just a few lines, Yao Yao was already asleep, nestled against him. Another one who gets sleepy as soon as they have to study. The prince didn't dare move, afraid of waking her, so he asked the nanny to carry her to bed. The nanny carefully tucked her in, but the moment her head hit the pillow, she woke up and shot up her arms. "I'm not sleepy. Help me up. I can still study." The prince, seeing her antics, gently reminded her that her father, the Grand Marshal, would be training them tomorrow. Yama just waved it off. "It's just horse dance, right? I've been doing that since I was little." The prince had no comeback for her confidence, but the old nanny chimed in. The Grand Marshal has instructed that you are to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. The young lady should go to sleep. The mention of 5 in the morning shocked Yao Yao wide awake. That's as early as the chickens. Are we supposed to crow? The prince and the nanny couldn't help but laugh. Back in the Phoenix Palace, the old nanny reported every detail of the day's events to the Empress. His Highness said he and the young lady were like brother and sister, and she got upset. Then he said a few words, and she was happy again. When she said she likes His Highness the most, his face turned red all the way to his ears. Later he was teaching her, and she fell asleep in his arms. And when she heard she had to wake up at 5, she asked if she was supposed to crow like a chicken. Even His Highness couldn't help but laugh. The Empress chuckled, covering her mouth. Only she would think of something like that. Just then, the Emperor parted the beaded curtain and walked in. What is my Empress so amused? The nanny and maids bowed and excused themselves. The Empress leaned into the Emperor's embrace. Jing, our little Ginger and Yao Yao are just like we used to be. Those were good times. Are they? The Emperor said softly. I think right now is even better. And then things got a little heated. But you're not here for that, so we'll just dim the lights. What's it like to be dragged out of bed at 5 a.m. for a workout? It's a nightmare. Yama was so groggy she could barely open her eyes as 3 maids got her dressed and ready. The Crown Prince, already prepared, saw her sleepy state and just shook his head. He knew this would happen. After the maids finished, Yao Yao let out a lazy yawn, flopped back onto the bed, and was instantly asleep again. Nothing they said could wake her. The prince told the maids to go prepare breakfast, and decided to wake her himself. He was honestly impressed by how fast she could fall asleep. He gently pinched her nose. A few seconds later, she shot up. What? What are you doing? Waking you up, of course, the prince said with a sigh. Come on, we're going to be late. Yao Yao, still half asleep, mumbled that she hadn't even washed up yet. The prince told her it was already done while she was sleeping. She blinked, confused. She thought that had been a dream. Just then, the prince noticed the hairpin in her hair. He naturally reached out and took it off, telling her it wasn't practical for martial arts training. As he stood so close, Yao Yao could feel his warm breath on her face, and her cheeks flushed. After removing the hairpin, he retied her hair for her. Seeing how gentle and thoughtful he was, she felt a sudden rush of happiness. At the training grounds, Grand Marshal Shen stood alone, his heart sinking. Yao Yao is late, as expected. She doesn't take her father seriously at all. Just as he was feeling sorry for himself, Yao Yao appeared with a bright, happy smile. Daddy, it's only been a day, but I've missed you so much. Despite the cheerful smile, she knew she was in trouble for being late on the first day. She remembered her mom's advice. No one hits a smiling face. So she was grinning from ear to ear. The prince standing behind her saw right through her little act. Feeling guilty? You think that'll get you out of being punished for being late? Suddenly, a lifeless voice came from behind the prince. Your Highness, aren't you a guilty little one yourself? Seeing it was when Kongi, whom he had dragged along, the prince warned him to stop mumbling, or he'd be punished too. But Kongi didn't seem to care. Go ahead, punish me. I don't want to live anyway. My family has been scholars for generations. Why do I have to be good at both books and fighting? No one said I'd have to be a sparring partner when I signed up for this. I don't want to live. As he spoke, he swayed back and forth. The prince quickly grabbed his shoulder. Kungi, he said gravely, if you don't want to train, then you don't have to. Kungi's face lit up. Just as he was about to thank him, the prince's tone shifted. You thought I'd say that? We need to be well-rounded. Just think of it as exercise. Henga's face fell back into a look of utter despair. The prince's mind is a mystery, he thought. What did I ever do to deserve this? But before her father left that morning, her mother had specifically told him not to spoil their daughter anymore. After all, she was going to be the crown princess, and she couldn't keep acting so undisciplined in the palace. The Grand Marshal, though reluctant, knew his wife was right. Steeling himself, he said, pouting won't work. If you're late, you get punished. Start with 8 laps around the training field. Her father's strictness completely caught Yao Yao by surprise. 15 minutes later, the prince was already on his 4th lap. Fengyi was struggling through his 3rd, complaining,
You two are late, but I get punished too. This is so unfair.
The prince is catching up. Yamo, also out of breath, shot back, As a study partner, you have to expect collective punishment. This isn't being punished together. It's sharing the hardship. Though exhausted, Kangi never lost a war of words.
Little sister Shenyao, can you even write the words for sharing the hardship?
As they bickered, the prince caught up and effortlessly passed them. Yama couldn't help but exclaim, "The big brother prince is so amazing. He's so fast." Then she looked at the equally pathetic Kongyi beside her. "When Kongyi, you should learn from him. Why are you as sarcastic as Xiaomian?" The second the words were out of her mouth, someone grabbed her by the collar from behind. She turned to see her father with a grim expression. Speaking ill of a prince? 1 extra lap. The Grand Marshal was genuinely worried that Yao Ya's lack of filter would get her into trouble in the palace one day. Hearing she had an extra lap, Yao Yao looked at her father pitifully and whispered that she couldn't run that many. Seeing her expression, he almost caved. No, I have to be strong. Yo, the palace isn't like home. You can't be so undisciplined, he said firmly. 1 extra lap. Yoya lowered her head and mumbled a soft, "Oh," showing she understood. Kongyi, watching from the side, couldn't help but think, a father's heart of iron. Another 15 minutes passed. Only Yao Ya and Kangi were left stumbling around the track. The Grand Marshal cheered them on. "Just 2 more laps. Keep going." The prince, seeing they were about to collapse, tried to help. "Master, class at the academy is about to start." Hearing this, the Grand Marshal shouted, "Hongyi, you can stop. Come here." Yao Yao thought she was free too, but his next words shattered her hopes. "Shenyao, keep running." She didn't understand why she was being treated differently. Her father had to be harsh. "This is for your own good. Otherwise, you'll never remember why you were punished today." Though Yao didn't understand her father's tough love, she did as she was told, but tears started streaming down her face. Seeing her running and crying, the Grand Marshal's resolve crumbled again, and he started running alongside her. Back at the academy, the students were reading aloud while Yao Yao was nodding off at her desk. The prince, her desk mate, saw her stayed inside. After a moment, he gently pushed her head down behind a textbook. "Go ahead and sleep. I'll tutor you when you wake up." Yama never thought she'd have a nightmare about her own father. When she woke up from the dream, terrified by his strictness, she realized it wasn't even dawn yet. She got dressed and decided to go wake up the crown prince. The prince was also dreaming, but he was dreaming about studying with his teacher. Yama whispered, "Big brother, prince." The prince shot up in a reflex, still reciting what his teacher had taught him. Ya was amazed. "Big brother prince, you even study in your dreams?" She poked his cheek to see if he was really awake. The prince, now fully awake, grabbed her mischievous hand. "Why are you up so early today?" "I had a nightmare about my dad, and it woke me up," she said gloomily. The prince was speechless. He had never heard of someone being scared awake by their own father. Seeing the sky lighten, he called for the maids to help Yao Ya get ready. Before she left, Yao Ya reminded him to hurry up. She did not want to be punished with more laps. At the training ground, just the warm-up run left Yao Yao and Kongyi exhausted. Then it was horse stance and boxing practice. This was Yao Ya's strong suit, and her movements were sharp and impressive. Kongyi, on the other hand, looked like he was about to fall apart. Finally, the Grand Marshal announced the end of the session. Yao immediately shouted, "Thank you, teacher. Goodbye, teacher." Then she whispered, "Quick, run before my data science homework." Kangi panicked and started to run with her, but they had only gone a few yards when the prince's calm voice stopped them. The Grand Marshal already thought of that. He's already assigned the homework. Hungi's shoulders slumped. All that running for nothing. I'm so tired. Seeing their little plan fail, the prince was in a surprisingly good mood. "Our homework is to perform the boxing routine smoothly tomorrow, write out the mantra for it from memory, and add our own notes and insights." Yama and Kongyi looked like they had been struck by lightning. They both wailed. "I can't remember it. I can't do the moves. Big brother Prince, help me sob. The prince put his arms around the two of them. You two can actually help each other out, he said seriously. Yao Yao is slow at reading, but picks up martial arts quickly. Hearing the prince praise her, Yao Yao blushed. Prince then turned to Kong. Don't just focus on her weaknesses. Everyone has their strengths and shortcomings. With that, he announced he would be supervising them until they finished their homework. Meanwhile, in the Hall of Mental Cultivation, the fifth prince knelt alone before the emperor, silent. The emperor's voice was cold. If I don't agree, you'll just kneel here and threaten me. Go kneel outside. When you've thought it through, you can go back. If you only care about your rule-breaking mother, you can kneel until you die, for all I care. The dynasty will just have one more undisciplined son. This consort was accused of sneaking out of the palace to cheat on the emperor. The emperor, not being a fan of being cheated on, threw her into the cold palace. She desperately wrote him a letter, trying to prove her innocence. Just then, an old nanny burst in. Your ladyship, the fifth prince went to the palace to plead for you, and was punished by his majesty. He's kneeling outside the Hall of Mental Cultivation. Consort Wei was both shocked and furious. What? Who told me? Xiao Jing. He really has no feelings for me at all. With that thought, she kicked over the table in front of her. There was no point in writing that letter anymore. The fifth prince had already been kneeling outside for over an hour. He had been told that his mother was slandered after sneaking out to visit him, and that the emperor had been deceived by villains. So he knelt, begging his father not to believe the one-sided stories. As he knelt, the crown prince, Yao Yao, and Kangyi, having heard the news, arrived. The crown prince saw his fifth brother was about to collapse and told him to go back, saying he would talk to their father for him. But the fifth prince wasn't grateful. Say what? Kick me while I'm down? He sneered. The crown prince was annoyed. Is that all they taught you at Sword Forging Manor? But then he realized his brother had been kneeling in the sun for a long time and was probably at his limit. Since talking wasn't working, he would have to use force. He got into a stance, said sorry, and brought a hand down in a swift chop to the fifth prince's neck. The fifth prince immediately went limp and fell into his arms. The move stunned Kangyi, who was terrible at martial arts. They had just learned that move this morning, and the prince had already mastered it. Yama, seeing this, looked at her own hand and said she thought she had learned it too. Pangyi was about to ask if she was serious when, without warning, Yao Yao chopped him on the neck. With a thud, Pangyi fell to the ground. Yao Yao was thrilled. Wow, I really did learn it. Inside the hall, the emperor had watched everything. He ordered a eunuch to take the fifth prince and Kangyi to the East Palace, have Shen Yao look after them, and bring the crown prince in. Yao was not happy about having to take care of her rival, the fifth prince. But the prince said that if you knock someone out, you have to take care of them. Yao Yao felt that made sense, but he was the one who knocked out the fifth prince. Seeing she was getting harder to fool, the prince explained that he had originally planned for Kangyi to take care of him. But since she had knocked Kangyi out, she was responsible. Before she could ask any more questions, the prince changed his tone. He gently cupped her face in his hands and gave it a little squeeze. Little sister Yao Yao, it's your time to shine. Staring at the handsome and gentle prince, Yao Yao just nodded dumbly and agreed. In the Hall of Mental Cultivation, the emperor explained the situation to the crown prince. Consort Wei's trusted maid had accused her of having an affair with Chen Chen, the deputy commander of the Imperial Guard. On the day she snuck out, Chen Chen was indeed with her. She didn't return all night and wasn't at Sword Forging Manor. And to top it off, Chancellor Wei, her father, had called in sick today, only to send the clueless fifth prince to get into trouble. Why? The crown prince thought for a moment. He wants to create a rift between fifth brother and father. There are many suspicious things about the consort's case. I suspect there's more to come. The emperor agreed, which was why he decided to have the fifth prince stay in the East Palace for now. He then told the crown prince to go get his mother. The empress won't even come see me over such a small matter, just to avoid suspicion. It's so frustrating. Yamua had never expected the first person she'd have to take care of would be her little rival. She carefully helped the fifth prince sit up to give him some water, but ended up spilling it everywhere. Kongi, watching from behind, got anxious. Be more careful. He's not drinking it. What am I supposed to do? Yao Yao defended herself. Kongi knew she wasn't good at this, so he told her to move aside so he could help wipe up the water. The fifth prince, who had been forced to drink a few sips, frowned as if he was waking up. Just as Kongi was about to wipe his face, the fifth prince shot up, grabbed his hand and yelled, "You hit me!" before throwing a punch. Yama was stunned by the force of the blow. Kenji clutched his eye and whimpered, "Your Highness, it wasn't me who hit you." The fifth prince was now fully awake. He looked around, confused. Is this the East Palace? Seeing him about to get up, Yao Yao quickly pulled Kongi back, warning the fifth prince not to lose his temper with them, as they hadn't done anything. Just then, the crown prince returned. Seeing her savior, Yao Yao felt a wave of indignation. "Big brother prince, he hit Komyi." The fifth prince just snorted. What a professional tattletale. He didn't bother explaining and rushed out. "I have to go save my mother." The crown prince blocked his way. "Fifth brother, do you still not understand why father is angry? You were at Sword Forging Manor. How did you hear about what was happening in the palace? Who told you?" The fifth prince remembered it was his grandfather who had told him, but he didn't want to think about it. He pushed past the prince. "So, you all bully my mother in the palace, and I'm wrong for coming back." Seeing his brother's stubbornness, the prince continued to block him. Consort Wei is confined to the cold palace, but she still has her title. The imperial clan court is still investigating. Chancellor Wei stayed home sick, but pushed you to come plead with father. Father is angry that you don't trust him. Your name is Xiao, not Wei. Is it that hard to choose between being an obedient grandson and a thinking prince? The fifth prince finally started to listen. His mother was framed, and it didn't make sense for his grandfather to only send him to plead her case. But he was still stubborn. "You're just trying to drive a wedge between me and my grandfather." Yao and Komi both looked at him like he was an idiot. How could a perfectly normal person not understand what was good for him? They were half-brothers, but at this moment, they faced each other with swords drawn. The fifth prince thought that after a few months of training at Sword Forging Manor, he would be stronger than the crown prince. But after just a few dozen moves, he was already losing. To make matters worse, Yao Yao's deafening cheers of, "Go, big brother, prince, go!" were so distracting he couldn't concentrate. The crown prince took advantage of his distraction, and with one move, knocked the wooden sword from his hand. "I win, fifth brother." "Try not to get distracted next time," the prince said, helping him up. The fifth prince, looking defiant, declared that he would beat him next year. Before the prince could say anything, Yao Yao smugly chimed in. "The big brother prince is the best. You'll still lose to him next year." Being looked down upon, the fifth prince retorted, "Well, I'm still better than you." Seeing them about to start bickering again, the prince quickly separated them, but they continued to trade insults. Finally, the prince pulled out his trump card. "If you two stop fighting, we can have hot pot for dinner." The mention of hot pot instantly shut them up. That evening in the East Palace, they were all enjoying a steaming hot pot. As she ate, Yao Yao felt like something was missing. She asked the prince if they had any of that sweet fruit wine her second brother had given them once. The fifth prince immediately objected. "Kids shouldn't be drinking. It's improper." Yama huffed, annoyed that he was disagreeing with her again. But remembering that his mother was in trouble and he had just lost to the prince, she decided to let it go for today. Prince, sensing the tension, quickly tried to distract them. "Eat your vegetables. Eat your vegetables." To his surprise, Yao Yao suddenly leaned over and ate the vegetable right off his chopsticks with a loud chomp. For a moment, the prince felt like he was feeding a rabbit. As Yao Yao was about to peel a shrimp for the prince, a guard announced that the imperial clan court had caught the real culprit and cleared Consort Wei's name. The fifth prince was overjoyed and immediately wanted to go see his mother. But the guard said that the consort was with the empress right now, and it would be better for him to go tomorrow. His mood now soaring, the fifth prince declared, Fine. I'll go tomorrow. Someone bring out the fruit wine from the western regions that fourth brother has been hiding." Yama heard him and thought, what a hypocrite he was. After a few drinks, they all started to get a little tipsy. The prince was feeling dizzy when he turned and saw Yao Yao staring at him intently. She started leaning closer and closer, and he panicked. Oh no, is she going to try to cuddle me? Drunk, Yama kept leaning toward the crown prince. He thought she was about to get all cuddly in public and scrambled backward. At the last second, he grabbed the fifth prince next to him and pulled him in front. But it turned out, Yao Yao wasn't going for a cuddle. She went straight for a chokehold. The fifth prince, struggling to breathe, managed to gasp, "Fourth brother." Hearing the wrong voice, Yao Yao realized her mistake. She frowned and played the victim. Hey, you tricked me by pretending to be the big brother prince. The fifth prince, choked for no reason, was getting angry. He struggled but couldn't break free. The movement made Yao Yao feel the alcohol rush to her head, and she went limp, falling on top of him. The fifth prince, pinned underneath, yelled, "Shen Yao, what's wrong with you? You can't even handle your wine. Get off!" But Yo-Yo was already fast asleep. The fifth prince had no choice but to call for the crown prince's help. As they were all laughing and joking around, a message was delivered to Consort Wei in the cold palace. It said that the person the court had found was just a scapegoat. The real mastermind was the Empress, and all the evidence was gone. Consort Wei couldn't believe the person trying to destroy her was Empress Shu Yan. She remembered when they were young, best friends. The Empress had married into the palace first, and Consort Wei hadn't wanted to compete with her friend. But the Empress had invited her to the palace, saying they could be together like they used to. After she arrived, Consort Wei had even defended the Empress when the Emperor kept adding women to his harem, reminding the Empress that he had promised to be faithful to her. But the Empress had just made excuses for him, saying he was just trying to balance the court's power. It was then that Consort Wei realized her friend had only invited her because she was the Chancellor's daughter. Later, after the Empress gave birth to the Crown Prince, the Emperor told Consort Wei he had promised the Chancellor a grandson, which is how the fifth prince came to be. But on the day she gave birth, neither the Emperor nor the Empress came to see her. They were both with the Crown Prince, who was frail. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. Her miserable life was all because of that foolish, youthful friendship. But even so, she had never tried to harm the Empress. And now, Sang Shuyan was trying to frame her. Just then, the Empress pushed open the door to the cold palace. "Luo, you've been through a lot. His Majesty has prepared a private dinner for you at Qianan Hall. I've come to get you." Consort. We stared at her, her voice icy. "Yan, I will tear the person who did this to me to pieces." Hearing her call her by her nickname, the Empress smiled. "The Emperor will get justice for you." Consort, we just laughed coldly. "I don't need anyone to get justice for me anymore. I will bury you all myself." With only 1 day of winter break left, Yo-Ya was in a panic, trying to learn embroidery from the sixth princess. But the lotus flower she was working on was a mess. It took the sixth princess a while to even figure out what it was supposed to be. As they were struggling, the crown prince walked in and asked if they had finished their homework. Yama quickly hid the sachet she was working on behind her back and said she was done. The prince, seeing her being so secretive, asked to see it. She refused, not wanting to embarrass herself in front of him. But he was quick. He snatched it from her before she could react. When she tried to grab it back, he held her off. He looked at the sachet with an "I knew it" expression. Seeing her still trying to get it back, he said it was too ugly and he was confiscating it. He then pulled a beautifully embroidered sachet from his pocket and handed it to her. "Use this one for your assignment. My mother made it in her spare time." Yaya's face turned red as she took it. She never expected him to be so thoughtful and sweet. Outside, her second brother, Shen Fang, saw the whole thing inside. His silly little sister was so easily won over. The sixth princess had also slipped outside, not wanting to be a third wheel. But she was startled by Shen Fang standing right outside the door. When he greeted her, her face turned bright red. She stammered for a moment, then turned and fled back into the room. Yao Yao was confused when the sixth princess suddenly hid behind her. She was about to ask what was wrong, when her brother walked in holding the embroidery the princess had dropped. Ya was thrilled to see him at the palace, and asked why he was there, but he immediately started scolding her. "Yao Yao, You've been in the palace for a year. How has your needlework not improved at all? Can't you learn from the sixth princess? He then bent down and handed the embroidery back to the princess. She took it, blushing, and thanked him without daring to look him in the eye. It was obvious to anyone with eyes that she had a crush on him. The prince, however, just thought his sixth sister was becoming more shy. When he explained that Shenfang had been appointed as a teaching assistant at the academy by the emperor, Yama jumped for joy. Yay! In that case, second brother, you have to help me and Xiaoan with our grades. No one noticed that the sixth princess's face had turned as red as a ripe apple. Back in his own quarters, the crown prince looked at the strange, ugly sachet and sighed. After some thought, he decided to keep it. Maybe it could ward off evil spirits. He also decided he needed to talk to his father about the engagement soon. Arranged marriages were just not for him. The next morning, the prince and his friends were on their way to school when they ran into Zhang Xiao. When he greeted them warmly, Yao Yao ran over excitedly. Big brother Zhang, what are you doing here today? Unlike Yao Yao's excitement, the prince and Kongyi both looked grim. The prince especially hated seeing the adoring look in Yao Yao's eyes as she looked at Zhang Xiao. He felt like she treated Zhang Zhao no differently than she treated him. Zhang Zhao told her he had been selected for the Imperial Guard, which made Yao Yao even more impressed, since her own older brother was in the same elite unit. Her worshipful gaze and enthusiastic attitude made Zhang Xiao a little embarrassed. He just scratched his head and said he was still no match for her brother. As they were chatting happily, Kongyi squeezed between them with a dark expression. Congratulations, Zhang Xiao. We're going to be late. The prince also reminded him, don't be late. They use military punishment for tardiness in the Imperial Guard. Hearing how strict it was, Yao Yao obediently said she would find him to play another time. Zhang Zhao patted her head and was about to leave. Noticing the prince staring at them, he casually invited him to come hang out too. The prince refused without a second thought. No thank you, I don't have time. He expected Yao Yao to ask him to come along, but when Zhang Xiao said, little sister Yao Yao can just come by herself, she agreed immediately. Watching her, the prince felt a pang of disappointment. Shen Yao is not the one I want for my crown princess, he thought. As soon as Zhang Xiao left, Kongyi warned Yao Yao not to go see him, calling him a wolf in sheep's clothing. Yao Yao didn't understand. Kongyi was about to ask the prince to back him up, but the prince just huffed. Let her do what she wants, and fell silent. Yao, seeing the prince was angry, thought it was because of what Kongyi had said. She told Kongyi to stop bad-mouthing Big Brother Zhang and upsetting the prince. Hearing this, the prince froze. He couldn't believe how completely she had misunderstood. He decided it was better to clear things up now, before it got more complicated. Shen Yao, from now on, don't call me Big Brother Prince. Just call me Your Highness, like Kongyi does. Yao was confused. Her mother, her brother, and even the Empress had told her to call him that. But now he was telling her to stop. Big Brother, Prince. Why? She asked, hurt. After some hesitation, the prince decided to tell her about his plan to break the engagement. You have plenty of brothers. You don't need me as one. And I don't want you to regret this in the future. But my only brothers are my real brothers. You and Big Brother Zhang, she said frantically, her voice trembling. Am I not special anymore? Have I fallen out of favor? Am I being sent to the cold palace? Her string of questions made the prince both embarrassed and angry. His face turned red as he pulled his hand away. Who told you all that? Shen Yao, this engagement was arranged by our parents, not by us. I'm going to ask my father to abolish the custom of children having to obey their parents' marriage arrangements. We should be focused on our studies and serving the country. He turned to leave, but was stopped by the sound of clapping. Her second brother, Shen Fang, was standing there with a grin. Your Highness, he said. That was quite a performance. The prince knew what it was like for Embarrassment's mother to hold embarrassment and cry. He was mortified. The prince was in the middle of breaking up with Yao Yao when her second brother caught him. The prince, who had been so righteous a moment ago, immediately clammed up. Kongyi, sensing the awkwardness, tried to smooth things over by telling everyone to get to class. But Shenfeng just waved Yao Yao over to stay behind. Ya's heart had sunk to the floor, but the first thing she said was to defend the prince insisting he hadn't been bullying her.
Shenfeng, hearing her still call him Big Brother Prince, sighed.
You have no backbone. He just told you not to call him that. Seeing his sister's lost and pitiful expression, he thought for a moment and asked seriously, "Do you like the prince?"
Yes, I do, she said without hesitation. Do you like Zhangja and Wen Kungi?
Yes, she answered again. Shenfeng smiled and patted her head. What if you had to marry one of them?
You thought about it.
Well, they're not as handsome as the prince, but I'll do whatever my parents arrange.
Her brother sighed and gently pinched her cheek.
You're so old-fashioned. I know you don't have much choice as part of a big family, but I hope you marry someone who is your true love, the one person you truly want to marry. Yao Yao looked at him completely bewildered. She didn't understand this true love concept. Shenfeng patted her head again. You'll understand when you're older. We just want you to be happy. While they were talking, the prince sat inside watching them, wondering what they were saying and feeling a little guilty about how harsh he had been. Kanji the bookworm thought the prince had done the right thing. What's wrong with focusing on your studies? We shouldn't neglect our schoolwork. He then confidently asked the sixth princess if she agreed. The princess had been staring outside the whole time. When Kongdi asked her, she snapped back to reality and said softly, I think my brother was a little too harsh. I'm worried he hurt Yao Yao's feelings. Just then, Yao Yao came back into the classroom to move her seat. Hong Yi was shocked. Are you not going to be his study partner anymore? He asked, then immediately realized his mistake. If there was no more engagement, why would she need to be? As Yao Yao was about to go back to her old seat, the prince spoke up, his voice low with shame. Shen Yao, it's not that I think you're not good enough. But let's talk about the engagement later. We're both still young. Since you're still my study partner, let's wait until you understand things better before we discuss it. Yama thought for a moment, then sat right back down next to him. You have a point, Your Highness. You get good grades, so it's good to be your desk mate. Hung Yi looked on completely defeated. Who is whose study partner here? I'm the official one. Break up now, regret it later. The prince, who had just tried to break up with Yao Yao, found himself unable to resist poking her cute face as she slept beside him. But the moment his finger touched her, she woke up. Startled, he quickly lied and said he was just trying to wake her. Yao Yao, still groggy, believed him. But none of this escaped the notice of her brother, the teaching assistant. With a thwack, he brought a book down on her head, waking her up completely. Shen Yao, sleeping in class. You get cleaning duty once and lose 1 point from your final grade. The prince was feeling a little guilty when he heard her brother continue. Her deskmate failed to remind her he also gets cleaning duty once and loses 1 point. Hearing this, the prince actually felt a little better. He figured it would be a good chance to explain things to Yao Yao about the breakup. When class was finally over, Shenfeng announced that they would be going to Zhongshan to plant trees in 2 days, then left. The prince saw Yao Yao silently packing her books to leave. He worked up the courage to gently tug on her sleeve. After you finish your homework for kickball class, I can take you with me. Yama just looked at him blankly and refused. No, thank you. I'm not interested. You can find someone else. With that, she called for the sixth princess to go to needlework class with her. As he watched her run off with the princess, the prince stood there, feeling dejected. In needlework class, Yao Yao handed in the sachet the prince had given her. As the teacher praised it, she felt more and more guilty and quickly made her escape. The sixth princess was thinking about how Shenfeng had praised her embroidery when he found it. The thought of her crush made her blush. Ya leaned in close and whispered, Xian, what does a true love feel like? My brother hopes I marry my true love, but I don't really get it yet. He said I'll understand when I'm older. I just hope that whatever it is, true love doesn't mind that my needlework is terrible. You're so much better than me. Your future true love will definitely like it. The sixth princess, whose mind was originally filled with thoughts of Shenfeng, was snapped back to reality by Yao Ya's last words. Her mother was not favored, and her family was not powerful. Her marriage would likely be arranged by her father, a political pawn. She remembered the beautiful night when she first met Shenfeng, the first time he had patted her head. How important is it to have a mother-in-law who has your back? This morning, the empress told Yao Yao to stick close to the crown prince after they got to Zhongshan, and to listen to the teacher. Hearing this, Yao Yao's spirits sank.
The prince probably didn't want her following him around. The empress noticed her sad face and asked if something was wrong.
Yao Yao just shook her head slightly. Just then, the crown prince walked in. Mother, I've come to get little sister Shen Yao. The empress told the nanny to take Yao Yao outside first, as she had something to say to the prince. Once Yao Yao was gone, the empress's face grew serious. I heard what happened at the academy. Are you unhappy with us or with Shen Yao? The prince explained that Yao Yao was too impulsive and not suited to be a future empress. Only someone calm and composed like his mother would be. The empress just sighed. But I wasn't always like this. If I didn't have to manage this entire palace, I would probably be even more naive than Yao Yao. The prince knew his mother was right. It was because he had seen how hard she worked that he only wanted to marry one wife. So that person had to be worthy of being the future empress. The empress was shocked by her son's idea to only have one wife in the harem would face unimaginable opposition. Seeing the determination in her son's eyes, the empress changed the subject. Even so, you shouldn't have embarrassed Yao Yao in public. I know I was wrong, the prince said, lowering his head. Seeing that he recognized his mistake, the empress told him to find a time to properly apologize and explain things to Yao Yao. Then she sent him off to join his friends. Meanwhile, Yao Yao, who had gone outside first, was looking around for the sixth princess when a familiar voice asked, Shenya, why didn't you come with fourth brother? You saw it was her rival, the fifth prince, and snapped, None of your business, before moving aside to wait for her carriage. The fifth prince was surprised that his simple question had made her so angry. With an attitude like that, my fourth brother will dump you sooner or later, he retorted. His words stung. Just then, the crown prince came out. The fifth prince said he was just there to hitch a ride. The prince was happy to see him and asked if he was going back to sword-forging mana. The fifth prince said he wasn't, that he was much stronger now and wouldn't be pinned down by some ill-mannered wild girl anymore. That set ya Yao off. Who are you calling a wild girl? Want to go around right now? Seeing them about to fight again, the prince quickly separated them. Why do you two always fight when you see each other? Fifth brother, Consort Wei is already trying to find you a wife. You need to be more composed in public. The fifth prince was shocked to hear his mother was setting him up on blind dates. Yamama sees the opportunity to mock him. It doesn't matter if you know or not. Someone like you could never find a wife on your own anyway. Better than marrying a wild girl, he shot back. The prince just sighed. His fifth brother's insults were all supposedly about Yao Yao, but every single one felt like a jab at him. After Shen Feng announced they could form groups of 3 to plant trees, the crown prince immediately asked Yao Yao if she wanted to be in his group. To his surprise, she turned him down flat, saying she had already promised to team up with her brother and the sixth princess. A little while later, Yao Yao was patiently teaching the sixth princess how to use a shovel, while Kangi, who was with the prince, was already exhausted. The prince hadn't lifted a finger to help. After telling Kangi to take a break, he went to check on Yao Yao's group. The sixth princess, after learning how to use the shovel, went to try it out. Yama saw that her brother was busy helping other students, and the princess was no help. So, the whole group's task fell on her. Just as she was about to get to work, the prince appeared, holding a flask of water in his hand. Hey, take a short rest. It's rose nectar, your favorite. He pressed the flask into her hand and added, Don't dig too hard, or your hands will blister. You should wear gloves. Yama stared at him blankly. Your Highness, you don't have to force yourself to take care of me just because the Empress told you to, she said quietly. I can manage on my own. That's not it. I wasn't, the prince stammered, not knowing how to explain. He quickly made an excuse about checking on Kongi and fled. On the other side, the sixth princess was struggling. She put all her strength into it, but she couldn't even break the soil. Shenfang took the shovel from her and said he was good at digging holes, so she could just help by getting the saplings. The princess happily went to get a sapling, glad to be useful. But she wasn't paying attention and tripped on a rock just as she was about to fall. Shenfeng rushed over and caught her in his arms. Be careful, Your Highness. There are a lot of loose rocks here. Are you hurt? Princess winced in pain. "My ankle really hurts," she said. Hearing this, Shenfeng swept her up into a princess carry. The princess's face turned beet red, and her heart pounded in her chest. Shenfeng told the crown prince to watch over the other students, then carried her off to get her injury looked at. The prince, who had been relaxing, was suddenly put in charge and started leading the students in planting trees. The fifth prince, seeing his brother was swamped and Yao Yao was now alone, sneakily went over and asked her for a favor. Yama instinctively wanted to refuse. Her group was already 2 people short and she was busy enough, but the fifth prince pleaded and begged until she followed him to the hole he had dug. Yama was shocked. "This hole is huge. Are you planting a tree or burying someone?" Before she could finish her sentence, he shoved her into the pit. "You guessed it," he taunted. "A hole this big is for burying you." He then tossed a bag of snacks down to her. "You can think about what you did down there. This is what you get for betraying me. When you figured out how to explain yourself, I'll pull you up." After being pushed into a deep pit, the little girl's first instinct wasn't to call for help, but to start munching on snacks. Yama sat in the hole, completely unvor. She figured her brother would come looking for her soon. Plus, the snacks the fifth prince had given her were actually pretty good. When the fifth prince asked his 2 lackeys if Shen Yao had reflected on her actions yet, they reported that she was happily eating away. "Chen Yao!" he yelled down, annoyed. "Don't you have anything to say about the deskmate situation?" Yao was confused. She thought he had pushed her in for some other reason, but it was just about this. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. She put her hands on her hips and demanded, "You were away studying. If I didn't get a new deskmate, how was I supposed to do the partner assignments?" "Partner assignments?" the fifth prince asked, surprised. "We never had those before." Just then, the crown prince arrived. "Fifth brother, what are you doing? Shen Yao, are you okay?" He reached down to help her out of the pit. After she was out, he checked to see if she was hurt. Yao Yao just dusted herself off and said she was fine. The fifth prince mumbled an apology. "I didn't know about the partner assignments. I'm sorry." Seeing that Yao Yao was okay, the prince turned on his brother sternly. "No matter what the reason, you don't push people into holes." Yama had never seen the prince so angry. She tried to smooth things over. "Don't be mad, Your Highness. He already apologized. And I'm fine. I just ate too many snacks and now I'm a little thirsty. I wish I had brought that rose nectar with me." Her foodie priorities left both princes speechless. That night at the Zhongzhan Palace, the fifth prince was fuming. He hadn't gotten his revenge, and now his fourth brother had a worse impression of him. He summoned his 2 followers and demanded an explanation. The 2, afraid of being punished, quickly came up with a plan. They would dress up as ghosts to scare Shen Yao, and then the fifth prince could swoop in and be the hero, mending their relationship. The fifth prince actually agreed to this plan. The 2 followers, dressed as ghosts, crept up to Yao Yao's window, but when they peeked in, they couldn't see anyone. As they were wondering where she was, a creepy voice whispered behind them, "Are you looking for me?" They turned around and saw a terrifying female ghost standing there. "A ghost?" they shrieked, then fainted on the spot. Yama took off her mask and looked at the 2 cowards. "That was too easy," she muttered. She had recognized them immediately as the fifth prince's followers, and knew he was behind it. Meanwhile, the fifth prince was hiding behind a tree, watching everything. He had planned to be the hero, but he hadn't expected Shen Yao to be so good at playing a ghost. Then it hit him. He was trying to fix things with her, and now these 2 idiots had just made it worse. Yama and the 6th princess were asleep. When the faint sound of a door opening woke Yao Yao, she gently woke the princess and whispered that someone was in the room, telling her to stay quiet and see what happened. 2 assassins, dressed in black, entered the room, but were confused. They were there to kidnap the 6th princess. But there were 2 girls in the bed. They couldn't tell which one was the princess and considered taking both of them. Yama overheard them and knew they were after the princess. "I can't let them take Xiaowan," she thought. She sat up abruptly and pretended to be groggy. "Someone attend to this princess." The assassins, believing she was the princess, moved in and covered her mouth with a cloth soaked in a sleeping drug. They then threw the unconscious Yao Yao over their shoulders and left. Once they were gone, the sixth princess crawled out from under the covers, frantic. She had to go find Shenfeng. At that moment, Shenfeng was miserably grading homework when he heard someone calling his name from outside. He opened the door to see the distraught princess. Mr. Shen, you have to save Yao Yao. To her. Tell me clearly, he demanded. After catching her breath, the princess cried. She was taken by 2 men in black. Unfortunately, the crown prince happened to be walking by and overheard. He was shocked, wondering who would dare to kidnap his future crown princess. After being carried off, Yao Yao started to struggle. Who are you? Let this princess go. The assassins were annoyed. The sleeping drug should have lasted longer. One suggested giving her another dose, but the other carrying her said it was too much trouble, and they were almost at the clearing where their horses were tied. Yama overheard them and knew she couldn't let them get away. She started thrashing even more wildly, yelling,
This princess needs to use the restroom! Put me down!
The assassins couldn't believe a princess would be so shameless. They told her to shut up, but she only got louder, insisting she couldn't hold it. The other assassin, worried she might actually wet herself on his partner, relented. They stopped and let her go behind a tree, but they both stood there staring at her. Yao Yao pleaded with them to turn around, but they refused, afraid she would run away. Seeing they weren't going to give her a chance, she pointed behind them and shouted, Hey! What's that? The assassin scoffed at her childish trick, but just then, with a loud thwack, a fan hit one of them in the head, and he collapsed without a sound. Shenfeng elegantly caught the returning fan, his eyes glinting. You have some nerve kidnapping a member of the royal family. The remaining assassin wasn't scared. His master had said that if he could take out Shenfeng, the reward would be doubled. Driven by greed, he yelled, Shenfeng, you brought this on yourself! And charged with his sword. But his blade was instantly caught in the ribs of Shenfeng's fan. An elbow strike later and he was on the ground. Shenfeng looked down at him, puzzled. He recognized me, but instead of running, he attacked. Was he after me all along? To make sure the assassins couldn't escape, he and Yao Yao tied them up securely. Yao Yao grumbled that he had taken too long. He explained that he was the fastest, and the prince and the others were still behind them. Just then, the prince and his men arrived. Shen Yao, are you okay? How could you just take the sixth princess's place? Yao Yao was taken aback by his angry tone. Xiaowan's foot was hurt, and I can run, she explained softly. It's better than her getting taken. The prince's anger subsided. But what if something happened to you? The sixth princess would feel guilty for the rest of her life. He softened his tone. Never mind. I won't let you get into a situation like this again. Can you believe it? She was supposed to be the most tragic figure in the palace. But her very first assassination attempt failed. She was so angry she almost tore Jingshu Palace apart. Useless fools. You couldn't even handle a few kids. An old nanny tried to calm her. My lady, please, calm down. Those two have been taken care of. The master said, We must be patient when dealing with the Shen family. He hopes you will not act on your own again. Consort Wei was furious. Wait again? How long do I have to wait? And father underestimates Shenfeng. My diversionary tactic failed. A person like that should be eliminated before he becomes too powerful. Meanwhile, Yao Yao and the sixth princess were in department class. Ya was so worried about her brother that she couldn't concentrate and almost dropped the bowl balanced on her head several times. The teacher kept reminding her to focus. The sixth princess saw how distracted Yao Yao was and guessed she was worried about Shenfeng. She pretended to feel unwell. Teacher, my foot hurts. Can Yao Yao take me to see the physician? Yao Yao recognized their secret code for skipping class and quickly followed her out. As they walked, the sixth princess mentioned that the assassins were really after Shenfeng, which made her even more worried about his safety. The crown prince had even been summoned to the imperial study over the matter. Worried that Shenfeng would be punished, they decided to go to the study and see if they could sneak a peek inside. As they were about to leave, a leather ball whizzed past their faces, startling them. They heard the fifth prince call out from the courtyard, Shen Yao, throw the ball back! Yao was furious. Did you aim that at us on purpose? The fifth prince didn't bother to explain, just impatiently told her to throw the ball back. Seeing that he wouldn't apologize, Yao Yao decided to give him a taste of his own medicine. All right, you want the ball? I'll give it back to you. She placed the ball on the ground, took a few steps back, and said menacingly, "You'd better catch this." With a running start, she kicked the ball with all her might. The fifth prince caught it, but was knocked back several steps, almost missing it. That girl's getting stronger, he thought. He watched the two of them run off. They weren't in class at this time, so they must be skipping. He had to go tattle. This is what you call sisterly love. For the first time, the sixth princess lied to a eunuch. All to give Yao Yao cover, so she could sneak into the imperial study. While the eunuch was talking to the princess, Yao Yao crept up to the study door. She could hear her brother inside pleading with the emperor. "Your Majesty, the students were attacked at the palace. It was my failure. The students are the future of our dynasty, and I am not fit for this responsibility. I ask that you dismiss me from my post." Yamo didn't understand why her brother wasn't defending himself. As she fretted, a voice behind her said, "Chen Yao, what are you doing here?" She nearly jumped out of her skin. It was the crown prince. She whispered that she was just worried about her brother. After finding out she had snuck in alone, he had her sit next to him to listen in. Yama saw he was taking notes and started chattering away. He had to shush her before she quieted down. Inside, Shenfeng felt that the situation was much more complicated than it seemed. He had caught the assassins himself, but they had died suddenly in their cells last night. Now there was no proof. Someone who could reach into the imperial prison in just one night must be. Just then the emperor asked, "Chancellor Wei, what are your thoughts?" An old white-haired man bowed. "I believe the palace had not been used for some time and security was lax. It is not entirely Mr. Shen's fault. He rescued the student and prevented a great tragedy, so his merit can offset his mistake." Shenfeng and his father both thought to themselves that this was clearly the Wei family trying to attack the Shen family, and now they were using Shenfeng to clear their own name. Too bad they had no proof. Yama, however, thought the chancellor was genuinely helping her brother, and that he was a good person. The prince, afraid his naive fiancée would be fooled, had to remind her that he was just using her brother to deflect suspicion. Hearing this, Yao Yao's expression changed. She had almost been tricked by that old man. What a crafty old fox. "It's cunning old fox," the prince corrected her. The emperor, after hearing the chancellor's opinion, spoke slowly. "The chancellor's words are fair. The matter of Shenfeng is closed. I order Grand Marshal Shen to reorganize the capital's defenses and strengthen security." Yao Yao was surprised. Her father hadn't said a word, so why was he being given a task? The prince, seeing she didn't get it, had to explain that this was the emperor's way of purging the Wei family's influence from the city's defenses. Seeing her brother was safe, Yao Yao got up to leave. The prince, hearing her call him Your Highness, felt a strange pang of disappointment. He wasn't used to it. As she was about to slip away, he grabbed her and pulled her back down. "At this time, shouldn't you be in etiquette class?" he said with a mischievous glint in his eye. "Since you're not there, you can come." Then he pulled out a stack of notebooks. "Let's practice writing out the 8 rows chapter from the Analects." Yama immediately tried to get up. "Your Highness, the Emperor will be angry if he sees me here." "No, he won't," the prince said flatly. "My father likes you more than he likes me, his own son." She couldn't argue with that, so she said the sixth princess was still waiting for her outside. But the prince saw right through her. "I'll walk out with you and tell her," he said. When the sixth princess saw Yao Yao, she immediately asked what happened. "My brother's fine," Yao Yao said with a miserable look on her face. "Then why do you look so upset?" the princess asked. Yama leaned in and whispered, "Your fourth brother is making me copy the Analects. You're the only one who can save me now." The princess peeked behind Yao Yao and saw the prince's terrifying glare. It was enough to freeze her in her tracks. Yao Yao, the physician, said, "I shouldn't stand for too long. I'm going back now." With that, she scurried away. Yao Yao was shocked that her friend would abandon her. Before she could recover, she heard the prince's voice behind her. "The sixth princess is gone. Let's go back and write." He then dragged her back inside. Yao Yao was on the verge of tears. When the prince said that,
After the 8 Rose chapter came the Zelu chapter. She completely broke down. If she had known this would happen, she never would have come to check on her brother. This morning, the crown prince went to pay his respects to his mother. But he had ulterior motives. Ever since the Analix incident, Xinyao had been avoiding him. As he looked around for her, the empress said, "Stop looking. Yao Yao isn't here." The prince froze, then quickly said he was just there to greet his mother. The empress didn't believe him for a second. But she was happy that he was actively pursuing Yao Yao, so she told him she had allowed Yao Yao to stay with the 6th princess for a few days. Seeing his plan had been exposed, the prince blushed and said he was going to go see his 6th sister, then quickly left. The empress, worried her son was clueless, called after him.
Stop talking to her about homework all the time. You're scaring her away in the purple joy garden.
The 6th princess and Yao Yao were on the swings. The princess asked why Yao Yao hadn't been seeing the prince lately. Yao Yao shook her head vigorously. Why would I to copy more books? He made me copy for a whole day. A whole day. Even when my dad makes me train, I'm not that tired. As she complained, she didn't realize the prince had snuck up behind them. I used to listen to him because I was going to be his crown princess, she continued. But now he has his own plans and says he only sees me as a sister, and he doesn't want me to call him Big Brother Prince anymore. He doesn't want to marry me, but he still forces me to do homework. It's so annoying. The prince, overhearing her say he was annoying, froze in place. Yao and the princess continued their conversation. My second brother said we're too young to understand what, really is. So I guess I don't really like the prince in that way, right? Does Shenfeng really think you can't understand just because you're young? The princess asked. Yeah, he said is more like how my mom and dad are at this. The princess gripped the swings ropes tighter and sighed sadly. I know is something special. The emperor only gives it to the empress. My mother barely ever sees him. Yao had a revelation. Oh, right. The prince is going to be emperor one day. Maybe it's better if I'm not his crown princess. The empress has to manage the whole palace and has so much work to do. At least the emperor likes her and spends time with her. But if the prince doesn't like me, I'll have to take care of all his other concubines. That would be miserable. You're so right. The princess agreed. The prince standing behind them had a storm cloud over his head. Right about what? Tired of their nonsense? He called out loudly. Shenyao! The 2 girls jumped. The prince strode over and grabbed Yao Yao's hand, about to drag her away. The 6th princess, afraid he would punish her, tried to intervene, but he shot her a sharp look. Xiaolu, as a princess, you shouldn't neglect your studies even on a day off. Copying books or running 8 miles. Your choice. Yama was terrified by his aggressive demeanor. Is he going to make me copy books again? Yama, thinking he was going to make her copy the Analects again, pulled her hand back and said she didn't want to write today. The prince just stood there, realizing how much she was afraid of him. After a moment, he said softly, I was wrong the other day. I'm sorry. You can call me whatever you want from now on. Yama was stunned. She reached out and touched his forehead. Weird. You don't have a fever. He gently pushed her hand down. Your brother is right, he said softly. Maybe we're not engaged because we're in love right now. But as the crown prince, I shouldn't shirk my responsibilities. In any case, I'm not interested in romance. So there will be no other consorts. You can continue to be my crown princess without worrying. Yama thought that sounded pretty good, until he added, but you still can't slack off on your studies. The romantic atmosphere instantly vanished. Yama jerked her hand away. If you're not interested in romance, why do you need a crown princess? You can go study by yourself. With that, she pushed past him and left. The prince stood there, completely bewildered. Why did she get so angry all of a sudden? Unable to figure it out, he summoned his advisor, Wen Kongyi. Kongyi asked why the prince had called for him. The prince, with a serious expression, said he had an important matter to discuss. Kongyi, thinking this was his chance to contribute to the nation, immediately straightened up, full of ambition. But then the prince whispered, What do you think of Shen Yao as the crown princess? Kongyi just stared at him, dumbfounded. When he saw the prince was still looking at him, he quickly said, The selection of the crown princess is a matter of state and must be considered carefully. But I'm not sure if Shanao can handle the affairs of the East Palace and the relationships in the harem in the future. My harem will only have her. The prince stated she won't have to deal with any of that. Kanji didn't understand why he was saying this. Your Highness, did something happen? The prince then pulled out a scroll he had written himself. The plan to cultivate the perfect crown princess. I was wrong before, he said. It's not that Shen Yao isn't fit to be the crown princess. It's that I can shape her into the perfect one. Kungi unrolled the scroll and was shocked to see it was covered in dense writing. If they followed the prince's plan and hired all those teachers for Shen Yao, they wouldn't be cultivating a crown princess. They'd be scaring her away. They say it's fun to be arrogant for a while, but you'll regret it when you have to win her back. But the crown prince's attempt to win Yao Yao back nearly sent her to an early grave. Yama was enjoying a rare chance to sleep in, but the prince sent people to rip her covers off at the crack of dawn. She stormed over to confront him, but he just told her she looked disheveled and it was bad for her image. It may be a day off, but a crown princess doesn't get days off, he said, pinching her cheek. Before she could argue, he continued, Before it was my parents who chose you, now it's me. But only through study can you be worthy of the title of crown princess. The moment she heard the word study, Yao Yao wanted to retreat. But the prince didn't give her a choice and ordered the maids to take her to the He garden. 2 maids grabbed her and dragged her away as the prince gave her a thumbs up. You can do it. At the He garden, the maids introduced the rooms. Young Lady Shen, this is the study for learning chess. This is the music room for learning the arts. When they got to the pharmacy, Yao Yao asked why there was a pharmacy. Before the maids could answer, Kanji appeared. This is for learning about herbs and medicine to avoid being poisoned. Yao was overwhelmed by all the different classes. Has the Empress been poisoned recently? She asked. Kungi ignored her and said he was just there to give her the schedule. Yao took one look at the schedule and her head started to ache. Dance, tea ceremony, horse riding, flower arranging, strategy. The list went on and on. Kongi gloated. What do you think? The prince values you so much. Aren't you touched? Yao Yao crumpled the schedule into a ball. You can leave now, Grandpa. I can't, Kenji said. The prince ordered me to supervise you. He was about to go read in the pavilion and come back for her at mealtime, but the dance teacher stopped him. Mr. Wen, you misunderstood. The prince said that as the study partner, whatever the young lady learns, you will learn too. Kengi froze. He had been tricked by the prince again. Yama, however, felt a little bit better. Come on, W. Kanji. Let's suffer together. What's it like to be forced into becoming a crown princess? Yao Yao was forced to learn dance in the morning, play the zither in the afternoon, and do flower arranging in the evening. By the time dinner came around, she and Kongi were both completely drained. The prince, seeing their exhausted state, mercifully told Kongi he could go home after dinner and didn't have to study with Yao Yao anymore. Kongi instantly perked up. Yao Yao thought she was getting a break too, but then the prince brought over an old man, Shen Yao. This is your strategy teacher for tonight, Mr. Deng. He's going to teach you about siege warfare and formations. Yo-Yo had expected as much and just sighed. Late that night, she dragged her exhausted body back to her room, where the 6th princess was waiting for her. She was shocked to see Yao Yao looking half dead. She quickly had the servants bring some snacks. After eating, Yao Yao fumed. The Empress must have scolded your 4th brother. He's doing this to torture me, so I'll be the one to break off the engagement. But I won't give up. I won't let him win. She then told the 6th princess to come with her to martial arts practice the next morning. Good friends had to suffer together. After all, the last day of their break arrived. When Yama woke up, she found the 6th princess was gone. When she called her name, the princess appeared, all dressed up. Yao Yao, you have cleaning duty at the academy today, so you don't have to get up early for practice. You then remembered it was the last day of break. But why are you all dressed up so early? The princess said she was just going with her to help clean, and she hadn't dressed up specially, but she was thinking, I wonder if Shenfun will be there today.
Yama thought it would be nice to have her along, since things had been awkward between her and the prince lately.
A little while later, the prince came to pick her up. He was surprised to see the sixth princess there.
The princess, seeing his expression, felt like he didn't want her to come. She quickly said she was going to help Yao Yao clean.
"You're going to clean dressed like that?" the prince asked, not believing her for a second. Just then, the fifth prince ran up. He had heard that the prince had gotten dragged into cleaning duty because of Yao Yao and had come to gloat. Yama shot him a dirty look, and he glared right back. The prince, afraid they would start fighting again, sighed. "Since you're all here, let's just go together." His plan for some alone time with Yao Yao to apologize was ruined. It looked like he wouldn't get the chance today. Early that morning, Yao Yao and the others went to the academy for cleaning duty. When she saw her second brother, the teaching assistant was there. She immediately started complaining. "Second brother, you have no idea what I've been through these past few days." Shenfang affectionately pinched her cheek and looked at the three who had come with her. "I didn't expect 5 little turnips to show up for cleaning duty today," he teased.
Mr. Shen, your math is off.
The fifth prince laughed. "There are 4 of us. Where did you get 5? There's one more inside," Shenfang explained. Inside, Kongi was furiously writing. Pangi was so dedicated to his studies, he even came to the academy on his day off, Shenfang said sarcastically. "So, I gave him some extra homework." He then put a hand on the fifth prince's shoulder. "Your Highness, are you here to study too?" The fifth prince had a bad feeling. Before he could explain, Shenfang pushed him into a seat. "Since you're so diligent, you can join Kongi." Yama shot her brother a look, signaling him to give the fifth prince a hard time for bullying her. Shenfang nodded. The two of them plotting together made the prince sweat. The fifth prince pointed at the sixth princess. "Why doesn't she have to do homework?" "Do you think she's here to gloat like you?" Yao Yao retorted. "She's here to help me clean." Kanji and the fifth prince, not wanting to do homework, immediately said they were there to help clean too, but Shenfang just told them they could clean the classroom after they finished their homework. They had shot themselves in the foot. Shenfang then assigned the prince and Yao Yao to clean the library. The sixth princess was about to go help, but Shenfang told her to stay and help him supervise, though she didn't understand why. She was happy to stay by his side. In the library, Yao Yao and the prince worked in silence. The prince noticed she had been unusually quiet lately. He cleared his throat and said, "I heard from your father that you've been doing well in your martial arts training." Yao Yao just gave a non-committal, "Why haven't you been talking to me much lately?" he asked. "My studies are demanding," she said, though she was thinking, "It's because you're torturing me with all this studying to force me to break up with you." Sensing the little girl's attitude, he asked if she was sulking. "No, you don't need to worry about me, Your Highness," the little girl snapped. "Let's just focus on cleaning." As she spoke, she slipped and fell right toward him. With a loud crash, they landed on the floor in a very intimate position. Both of them immediately blushed. While Yo-Yo was accidentally tackling the crown prince, the sixth princess was diligently supervising her fifth brother. Her eyes glued to his every move. "Xiao, I can't write with you staring at me like that," the fifth prince complained. "Mr. Shen told me to supervise you," she said, seeing nothing wrong with it. "Then why aren't you supervising them?" he demanded. Shen Feng, overhearing him, agreed it was a good point. He looked around for a spot where he could see both locations, and settled on a large tree in the courtyard. The sixth princess looked up at the tall tree. "I don't know how to climb," she said. "My apologies," Shenfang said with a smile. Before she could react, he swooped her up and leaped into the tree. The princess, caught in a princess carry, squeezed her eyes shut. "We're here," he said. "If you don't mind, could you loosen your grip a little? It's a bit tight." Startled, she blushed and looked down. Seeing how high up they were, she quickly turned and hugged the tree trunk. "What's wrong?" he asked, confused by her nervousness. "It's my first time being this high up," she said. "I'll take you tree climbing more often then," he said with a smile. "You can relax. I won't let you fall." She slowly shifted into a sitting position, but was still very tense. He told her she didn't have to be so formal. But how could she relax in front of her crush? She just said her mother had told her that as a princess,
She must always maintain her composure. Does hugging a tree like that count? He teased. Just as she was feeling embarrassed, they both saw the exact moment Yao Yao tackled the prince. The princess's jaw dropped. Shenfeng quickly covered her eyes. Kids shouldn't watch this. After accidentally tackling the crown prince and giving him a peck on the lips, Yao Yao sat on top of him, stunned. It wasn't until he awkwardly asked her to get up that she snapped out of it and scrambled to her feet. That was an accident. I didn't mean to kiss you. It was unavoidable. Don't get the wrong idea, she babbled, backing away and knocking over a bucket of water. The water spilled everywhere, soaking a pile of books. She quickly grabbed the wet books, her first thought not being that she would be punished, but that her brother would get in trouble. "Give me the books," the prince said. She thought he was going to tattle on her. "I'll agree to break off the engagement like you want. But please don't get my brother in trouble," she pleaded. The prince looked at the wet book in his hand and frowned. It was an original, one-of-a-kind manuscript by the poet Lucy Hang. He was even angrier that she thought so little of him. "Is that what you think of me?" "What do you mean, like I want? You're making me study all these things to force me to break up with you first, aren't you?" she asked. The prince couldn't believe she had misunderstood him this whole time. "It's because I want you to be my crown princess that you have to study so much," he said quickly. She was about to say that she would listen to her brother and that they should wait, but he cut her off by pinning her against the wall. "It's too late to back out now," he said domineeringly. "No breaking the engagement. And of course, a crown princess can kiss her own prince. Don't worry about what just happened." After his red-faced confession, he said he would take care of the wet book, and that she just needed to dry the others in the sun. Ya stared after him, dumbfounded. She never expected him to say those things to her today. The princess was happy that her friend and brother had made up, but Shenfeng's eyes were sharper. He had recognized the wet book as the works of Shahang. The princess was shocked. She knew it was a one-of-a-kind original. Shenfeng continued. "From the looks of it, the prince didn't tell Yao Yao how important that book is. In that case, please don't tell her either, so she won't worry." The princess agreed, but she was worried that if anyone else found out, her brother would be punished. "Mr. Shen, please keep what happened today a secret," she pleaded. "Of course," he said with a smile. "If you're still worried, we can make a pinky promise." The princess was taken aback. She didn't like that he always treated her like a child, but she couldn't refuse him. Blushing, she hooked her pinky with his. "There. Now you can rest assured, right?" he said, thinking she liked this sort of thing. "If there's anything else I can do for you, just let me know." She didn't understand what he meant by anything else. "After all," he continued, "you were frightened at the palace because of me. Consider this my apology." "In that case, Mr. Shen," she said timidly, "can you please stop treating me like a child in the future?" He just chuckled. "Your Highness, do you know that only children say things like that?" She knew he hadn't understood her real meaning. As she was about to try again, he went on. "What's wrong with being a kid? I wish I could go back to being 8 or 9. The princess gave up. She was so tired of this. The sixth princess couldn't believe her subtle hints had been completely lost on him. She didn't know if he was genuinely clueless or just pretending not to understand. Giving up, she said she was going to go help Yao Yao clean. "Next time you have cleaning duty, Your Highness," he teased, "you should probably choose something a little easier to move in." She wanted to explain that she had dressed up for him, but she couldn't bring herself to say it. She just said she hadn't thought it through and would follow his advice. Shenfeng sensed something was off in her tone and realized he had probably said the wrong thing. He immediately crouched down. "I didn't mean to criticize you, Your Highness. Please don't be upset. You are naturally beautiful and look good in anything. I was just worried that cleaning would stain your favorite dress and make you sad." She had thought for a moment that he was about to say something romantic, but it was just him talking to her like a child again. The more she heard, the angrier she got. When he finished, she turned and ran off, leaving him crouched there, completely confused. Meanwhile, Yao Yao had collapsed on the floor after finishing her cleaning. The sixth princess warned her she would get sick from the cold floor, but Yao Yao didn't care. The sun had already warmed the spot. She even invited the princess to lie down with her. As they lay there, they talked. Yao Ya admitted she had probably misunderstood the prince. She thought he was trying to make her give up, but it was the opposite. The princess wasn't surprised. I told you my fourth brother wasn't like that. He just overthinks things. Then she murmured, I hope I get to see you become the crown princess before I get married. What? Xiaoan, is your marriage arranged? Yao Yao asked, sitting up in shock. The princess looked downcast. My mother said, a few days ago, that father might be planning to marry me off to the Western Liang for a political alliance. You threw her arms around her. That's so far away. We'll never see each other again.
She then declared, I will definitely become the crown princess, and then I'll make the prince do something about it.
I won't let you get married off so far away. The princess just sighed. This was her father's decision. How could she drag her brother and Yao Ya into it? Besides, her silly second brother only saw her as a child. Even if she didn't go, what would change? It was better to just cherish the time she had left with everyone. Your super smart deskmate is sleeping in class. What do you do? Yama, the class's resident napper, was surprised to see the crown prince dozing off today. This was a rare sight. When Kangi, sitting behind them, also noticed, worried that someone would use this against the prince, he told Yao Yao to wake him up. But Yao Yao, looking at how peacefully the prince was sleeping, thought for a moment. After a brief internal struggle, she decided not only to let him sleep, but to join him. Kangi was speechless. It seemed like if you wanted something done right, you had to do it yourself. He twirled his brush and prepared to poke. Yama, seeing him hunched behind the prince, asked what he was doing. When he said he was going to wake him up, she immediately stopped him. The prince finally gets a chance to sleep. Why would you wake him up? Is this a place for sleeping? Kanji argued. If word gets out, the chancellor's faction will start talking again. As they were arguing, the prince woke up and whispered for them to get back to their seats. But just then, their rival, the fifth prince, shot his hand up. Teacher, Shen Yao and the others have been whispering under the desk and disturbing everyone. Yama was startled and looked up to see the teacher glaring at them as she shrank back. The prince quietly explained to the teacher that they were just discussing their performance for the academy's anniversary celebration, but the teacher wasn't buying it. Is that something you should be discussing in class? He snapped. Yao Yao quickly shook her head. The teacher, knowing she was prone to goofing off, decided to keep a closer eye on her. I'm already under your watchful eye, she said meekly. You see every little move I make. The teacher pointed to the spot right in front of his desk. I mean, here, go get a small table and sit here. Yao Yao was on the verge of tears. The pressure of sitting face to face with the teacher was too much. Little did she know, things were about to get worse. He slammed his own desk down next to hers and smugly told the teacher that since he was her deskmate, he should sit at the front too. Yao Yao immediately wanted to object, suspecting he was up to no good. But before she could, another thud came from her other side. The prince had also moved his desk, saying that sitting at the front was a good idea. As Yo Ya was trying to figure out what was going on, Kongi and the sixth princess joined in, one yelling, I'll be wherever the crown prince is, and the other, I'll be wherever Yao Yao is. Yao Yao was speechless. The teacher was not pleased with their impromptu seating arrangement. All right, now that you're all settled, no more whispering, he said grimly. For slacking off in class, Shen Yao, Wen Kangyi, and the fifth prince, go stand outside. The fifth prince protested. I didn't do anything. Why do I have to be punished too? For being loud and disrupting the class, the teacher said without missing a beat. As the three of them stood outside looking miserable, the teacher added, Think about what you did. And also, think about what you're going to perform. The three of you must perform an act at this year's celebration. But teacher, they were the ones discussing it. I wasn't, the fifth prince began. You will also perform a solo act. The teacher interrupted. Do the other two have any questions? Yao Yao and Kongyi, suddenly put on the spot, quickly shook their heads in terror. The teacher left, satisfied. The fifth prince was fuming and tried to blame Yao Yao and Kongyi. The performance was the prince's idea. Yao Yao shot back. And you're only being punished because you decided to move your desk next to mine. What does that have to do with me? While they were being punished, Yao Yao asked Kongyi what he meant earlier. Was the prince's sleepiness her fault? No, Kongyi said, quickly turning away. He couldn't let that secret out. The fifth prince, overhearing them,
took the opportunity to mock Yao Yao. I don't think you should be the crown princess. You're just causing trouble for my fourth brother. The prince said he wants me to be his crown princess, so mind your own business, Yao Yao retorted. The fifth prince, unable to argue, turned to Kungi. So why is the prince so tired? Forced to say something, Kungi lied and said it was because Yao Yao wasn't studying hard enough, and the prince was worried sick. Yama actually believed him and said that the prince hadn't been studying with her lately. Hungi seized the opportunity and went on about all the teachers the prince had hired for her. As Yao Yao naively argued with him, the fifth prince realized Kongi was just changing the subject. He was even more curious about what was really going on with his brother. As he was thinking, Yao Yao nudged him. So, what are we going to do for the performance? The fifth prince looked at the wild girl and the weak scholar beside him. What could they possibly perform? You do boxing, Kongi dances, and I'll play the zither, he said dismissively. Why do I have to dance? Kungi asked, horrified. I heard you've been learning martial arts lately. This is a good chance to show off your progress, the fifth prince said. Seeing Konga's distress, Yao Yao suggested he could perform a boxing routine instead. Kongi was speechless. He was learning martial arts, but he was nowhere near good enough to perform. That evening, at dinner, the empress kept putting food on Yao Yao's plate as the two chatted happily. The prince, however, was quiet. The empress, noticing his pale complexion, asked if something was wrong. No, mother. I'm finished. I'm going back to do my homework, he said, getting up to leave. Yama immediately stood up too. I'll go with you to do homework. She said goodbye to the empress and followed him out. On the way, she asked if he wanted to study together, but he said he had other things to do and refused. She offered to help, but he refused again and told her to go back to the he garden and rest. Yama watched him walk away confused. He was usually so eager to supervise her studies. Why was he acting so strange today? Could his recent exhaustion really be her fault? When the prince got back to his room, a head popped out from behind a lotus plant. Yama tried to follow him in, but a guard blocked her way. She said she was there to do homework with the prince, but the guard just said coldly, His Highness has ordered not to be disturbed. As she was about to argue, the prince opened the door. Yao Ya, I knew you'd follow me. Startled, she stammered that she had a question about a problem. When he asked which one, she couldn't answer. The prince knew what she was really up to. Even when she said that studying with him was more effective, he still gently pushed her away, saying he had extra assignments from his father and didn't have time to teach her. With that, he went back inside and closed the door, leaving her with the stone-faced guard. The next morning in class, they noticed the prince's seat was empty. It was the first time either of them had seen him miss class. Why is fourth brother absent? The fifth prince asked Yao Yao. What did you do now? What do you mean, what did I do? She shot back. I want to know why too. Seeing that she genuinely didn't know, the fifth prince realized she was telling the truth. Yao Yao said the prince had been acting mysterious and strange lately, which piqued the fifth prince's curiosity. It wouldn't be that hard to find out what he's been up to, he said. Yama didn't believe him. Don't underestimate me, he said, pulling her hair playfully. He then glanced back and saw Kongi straining to eavesdrop. He leaned in close to Yao Yao's ear. If you want to know, I'll come find you tonight at 10 o'clock. Can you even get out that late? She asked, then remembered. Oh, right. You have that doggy door. It's not a doggy door. It's a secret passage. Get it right? He huffed, not wanting to argue. She said, Whatever you say. Now tell me the plan. He drew a simple map. Fourth brother opened a side door to the He garden for you. We'll go through there. I know a shortcut to the East Palace. It sounded like a solid plan. They agreed to meet at 10. Behind them, Kungi hadn't heard a thing, but seeing them conspiring gave him a bad feeling. After school, he chased after Yao Yao to try to get some information, but as soon as he opened his mouth, the fifth prince appeared out of nowhere. When Kangji, did I hear you mention my name? Why don't you say it a little louder? Startled, Kanji quickly straightened up. I was just saying that as a prince, you shouldn't be whispering in class. You're the crown prince's study partner, not mine. It's not your place to lecture me, the fifth prince said dismissively. Yao Yao and I were just discussing our performance for the anniversary celebration.
He then playfully tugged on Yaoya's hair again. She was so annoyed she wanted to punch him. I wonder if you've figured out how you're going to dance yet, he continued, smirking at Kangi. Kangi's heart sank. Was he really going to have to dance? His grandfather would kill him. Just then, the sixth princess spoke up. If Kangi dances, your act probably won't be approved by the teacher. Since you're playing the zither, he could do calligraphy, and Yao Yao could dance or do boxing. It was a brilliant idea. The sixth princess is right. Let's do that, Kangi exclaimed. The fifth prince, annoyed that his plan was foiled, was about to scold the sixth princess, but Yao Yao stepped in front of her friend and glared at him. He decided it wasn't worth fighting with a girl and just reminded Yao Yao not to forget their plan before leaving. I know. Whoever backs out is a dog, she yelled after him. Kanji, hearing they really did have a plan, asked what it was.